not addicted to books. I can stop as soon as I finish the next chapter. Aloha and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn Maya, aka the Baby Boomer Booktuber, and this is my 14-year-old Jasmine. Princessa Jasmine had a new haircut, so I wanted her to say hello. Say hello, Jasmine. Well, I'll put her down. This video is my May TBR, or Pile of Possibilities. Should we say that's POP instead of TBR, Pile of Possibilities? I don't know if you noticed, but I'm wearing a different outfit from my teaser. There's a reason. Booktuber problem. My particular problems. Last week, I talked about how keeping up with Booktube, you know, the TBRs, the hauls, the readathons, and how it was causing me anxiety. I have an actual anxiety disorder, so I tend to be a perfectionist, as most people are who have anxiety disorders. And that is why when I attempted to do what I thought was a pretty easy readathon, with only a few prompts, Katy's at Books and Things, her 1900 to 1950 readathon, and I'll have her introduction to her readathon down in the show notes. Well, I thought it would be a breeze. Au contraire, mon frère, which means it wasn't. I tried to squeeze the books in a forced way, and I came upon some problems, such as the publications being different from what I thought that they would be. Some books, especially during World War II, that taken place during, for example, the Holocaust, but they weren't published until maybe the 50s. So that was a problem. And also because I was getting triggered by some of the material that I thought I was going to present. More about that later. I started Booktube on my 70th birthday at the end of August of last year. My calendar was wide open, as most of people discovered during the pandemic, that jobs were gone and work was gone, and they had more time to spend at home. On self-reflection, I think one reason I started at that time was because I was having problems with finishing my own memoir. And I think it was a type of procrastination. You know, finishing my book. Finishing a book is harder than starting one, I think. So I embarked on this exciting new project of Booktube. Don't get me wrong. I've made so many wonderful friends and have expanded my reading life. And I'm so happy that I joined Booktube and met so many wonderful friends. My decision has been well worth the delay. But since I resumed my editing of my book, I don't know if there are some writers here on Booktube, but editing it's a thorn in my side. I mean, I really am not good at it. I've become much better at it, and in fact, I am a better reader, not better, but B-E-T-A, beta reader for other writers. And I find that I can look at the big picture better than some of the small problems. Or let's say that I can spot problems in other people's books better than I can in mine, and that's very common. So lately I've felt the pressure more. And I've watched Booktube videos lately that have people are switching their focus from TBRs, hauls, and churning them into, or changing them into more book reviews, changing them into discussion videos and tags. And I'm not going to do that because I still enjoy suggesting books to booktubers and being suggested books. So for right now, I'm going to continue what I'm doing. So I decided to do Katy's readathon in a more organic way. I'll present my books for May. I ordered these books a while ago and I haven't opened them yet, and they're going to be part of my May TBR. My partner he's made it easy for me to get the books out, but still, I don't know what they are because I'm greedy about books, and if I see something that I like and it's not in the library, I'm going to order it if I can. So I'll do the prompts afterwards, and if some of the prompts, you know, fit into the books that I have, fine, and if they don't, also fine. So, as booktubers are wont to say, without further ado, the books. I'll start with the books that I haven't opened, so see what it is. The first book is Edna O'Brien, The Country Girls. And this is a book that Shawn the Book Maniac suggested that I read. It's by Edna O'Brien, and I'll read you a little bit of it. It says, in the early 1960s, in a country village in Ireland, Kathleen Brady and her attractive friend Baba are on the verge of womanhood and dreaming of spreading their wings in a wider world, of discovering love and luxury and liquor, and above all, fun. So I'm really looking forward. This was written, I want to look at the publication date just to see if this was going to fit into the 1900 to 1950. And I'm almost positive it won't. This was published in 1960, which, by looking at the hair of this girl, I had similar hair in 1960. So I'm really looking forward to reading The Country Girls. And I heard a lot. In fact, I watched a video of Edna O'Brien. She's older than I am right now, but she was talking about her life, and it was really interesting. Okay, so that's The Country Girls. The next book, oh no, it's The Country Girls again, now filmed for television. I was watching a Booktube video from my friend Alba at Seriela. She's a Puerto Rican booktuber, and she was saying that she does the same thing, and that's why she doesn't do TBRs. She buys the same book, but I'll give one away, I guess. I don't know if this is smaller, so maybe this is the trilogy, because it's the trilogy. So this might be one that I got very cheap, and this might be the whole trilogy. So we shall see. All right, so my next, and it's from Better Books, Better World Books, and they really know how to get a book sealed. And this is, now I remember it, it's Between Sky and Sea by Hertz, I hope I say his name right, Bergner. Introduction by Arnold Zabel. And I think I found this book either from Daniel at Guilty Feet, or it could be also Shawn, the Book Maniac. And it's the winner of the Australian Literature Society's Gold Medal for Book of the Year 1948. Oh, 1948. So this might fit into the Readathon. Great. And I know that it was something that I was interested in, and I haven't been very successful with the Australian Readathon last month. I had to discard or stop reading one of the books that I started. It was a memoir. But anyway, this is fleeing the Nazi invasion of Poland. A group of Jewish refugees are thrown together, human cargo on a dilapidated Greek freighter bound for Australia and the promise of new life. But the ship wallows listlessly between sky and sea, unwelcome at any port, and its passengers find their lives laid bare. Tensions rise as they try to cope with their profound sense of loss and the uncertainty of their fate. Guilt, desperation, and tenderness intertwine as the novel moves towards its shocking climax. So I'm wondering if this is a translated book, or what it was first it doesn't say that it was, oh yeah, here it is, translated by Judah Watson, And he was born in Russia between 1911 and migrated to Australia in 1914. And Hertzbergner, the original, so this might be in Yiddish. He was born in Poland in 1907, migrated to Australia in 1938. So yes, he was a prolific writer of short stories and novel in Yiddish about Jewish migrant life in Australia. And this reminded me, just reading the blurb, of a book that I read about a similar group of immigrants going to Shanghai. And I can't remember what the name of the book was, but if you know, if that rings a bell to you, please let me know in the comments. Great, so I can use this for one of the prompts, 1948. And the last one, I knew what it was because it didn't feel like a book. It is, and I talked about D.H. Lawrence, The Widowing of Mrs Holleroid. It comes from a book of stories that he wrote, The Odor of Chrysanthemums in Prussian Offices and Other Stories. But it also was made into a play in around 1912, 1907, and I complained a lot about the way this book was formatted. It was really bad. But anyway, I picked this up because I wanted to see this. I had originally got introduced to D.H. Lawrence by this play. And when I looked it up on Amazon, I think, it had Colin Firth, Zoe Wanamaker, and Stephen Delane. I mean, these are first-class actors. And this was made from a masterful BBC production about which George Bernard Shaw wrote, "I wish I could write such dialogue. With mine, I always hear the sound of the typewriter." And I had been looking for that, that quote, and here I found it. So it portrays the brutal side of industrialization. Lawrence's women are put upon by vulgar, low-minded brutes who stagger home drunk from the pit and lay about them with their fists and occasionally bring the odd trollop into the house. In The Widowing of Mrs Holleroid, Lizzie Holleroid, Wanamaker, Zoe Wanamaker, and her boorish husband, Firth, Charles, scream their lives away until Lizzie falls in love with another man and wishes her husband dead. A wish that horribly comes true. And I saw not a BBC production of this, but a small Southern theater group's production. And it really touched me at the age of 25. As I was going about a similar divorce, not a death, but a divorce, and was running away to Spain as her new boyfriend is going to Spain too. So everything about it just screamed romantic to me. So I'm really excited to see the BBC production of it. All right. My next book is Paris by the Book. And I got this from another booktuber, and I can't remember. I got this on Booktube, let's say that. And book and Paris together, that just screams my name. And what it says is, when eccentric novelist Robert Eady abruptly vanishes, he leaves behind his wife, Leah, their daughters, and hidden plane tickets to Paris. Leah sets off for France with her girls, where she discovers an unfinished manuscript Robert had set in Paris. They follow the path of the manuscript to a small, floundering English-language bookstore whose weary proprietor is eager to sell. Leah accepts the offer on the spot. Charming and haunting, Paris by the Book explores the power of family and the magic that hides within the pages of the book. Now I'm going to say two things about this book. I'm going to read the beginning sentence or paragraph. Once a week, I chase men who are not my husband. After everything, I do this still. I should not, but there are many things I do that I should not. Smoke, own a bookstore, pay for French lessons I always find ways to skip, and this is one. I walk my daughters to school, stare past the parents staring past me, and start my search for that day's man. So that sounds really good, right? But I started reading it. I'm very, let's say I'm on page less than 50. I noticed there's no blurbs by any famous people, but that's okay. But I have to say that I'm not getting along with the writing of this book. I don't know if it's because it's a man that's writing a book based on a woman's point of view, or something else. But right now I'm not getting along with this book, and it might be, like I said, I don't say DNF'd anymore, but it might be discarded or quit. I don't know yet. But for the people who are interested in what it says about it, let me know if you've read it or read it. My next book is a book that I had picked out specifically from my library. I haven't read it, and it's called How Green Was My Valley. And I'm looking for someone to buddy read this book because I'm very excited to read it, but I think I need some help. So it's the winner of the National Book Award for 1940, so yes, it does fit the prompts. It's a story of exquisite distinction and vibrant interest, clear and strong as the music under the sky. And that's New York Times, so I don't really know what that means. But this one says by the Atlantic Monthly that it's a beautiful story told in words which have Welsh music in them. A book which will live in the minds and memory of its readers. And I think I hauled this book a long time ago in the beginning, but I'll just read the small first line. And it says, I'm going to pack my 2 shirts with my other socks and my best suit in the little blue cloth my mother used to round her hair when she did the house, and I'm going from the valley. So, Richard Llewellyn. Somebody, please read this book with me. And it also fits the prompts for this, for the 1940 readathon. So I'm going to put it to the side. The next one is also a novel that I don't think I would have came across if it wasn't for Booktube. And that's Do Not Say We Have Nothing, a novel by Madeleine Thien. And I looked up the pronunciation of her name, and I had thought that it was a Korean name, but it is also a Chinese name. And it's shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize in 2016. I've heard it on many literary channels here on Booktube. And it was written 2016, like I said. And I will read the first line. In a single year, my father left us twice. The first time to end his marriage, and the second when he took his own life. That year, 1989, my mother flew to Hong Kong and laid my father to rest in a cemetery near the Chinese border. Afterwards, distraught, she rushed home to Vancouver, where I had been alone. I was 10 years old. Here is what I remember. And it goes on from there. So master storyteller Madeleine Thien takes us inside an extended family in China, showing us the lives of 2 successive generations, those who lived through Mao's Cultural Revolution and their children who became the students protesting in Tiananmen Square. And this is a book that I don't usually tend to read. It's a book that goes into multiple generations of a family. But I have to say that this sounds very interesting because I'm interested in books written during the Cultural Revolution where, you know, communism took over and so many horrible things happened during that time. So many people were killed. So I feel that this will be a book that I am going to finish, but it doesn't fit the prompts. The next book is Miss Silva Comes to Stay by Patricia Wentworth. And I love the Miss Silva mysteries by Patricia Wentworth. And this one, I picked it out specially because it is written in 1949. And I'm reading another book called The Gazebo. It's also by Patricia Wentworth, but it's written later and I'm telling you, I'm enjoying this so much. So all I can say is The Gazebo by Patricia Wentworth and Miss Silva Comes to Stay. So when Miss Silver comes to stay, so Miss Silver, she's a great character in a book. She is a private investigator who was once a governess. She has an alarming habit, fortunately for Patricia Wentworth readers, of landing spang, which I never heard the word spang, but in the middle of situations involving murder, violence, and black intrigue. In this new adventure, Miss Silver arrives in a country village for a visit with an old classmate, friend, and promptly finds herself involved in events that make the welkin ring. I do not know what that means, but I know that I'm going to enjoy it. The Gazebo, this book is great. It's about a mother who's preventing her daughter from marrying by hook or by crook. And she's a very horrible character. So guess what happens to her? And this is really not a surprise. So I'm really enjoying this. Then we go to P.G Wodehouse. Now, Right Ho Jeeves. I read this, I didn't read this. I watched a video on someone's channel, and they said that Right Ho Jeeves was the best P.G Wodehouse book. And he was one of the greatest English comic writers of our time. I've watched these in old movies, the Wooster Jeeves duo. And Jeeves is, he's a butler who's smarter than the man that he's taking care of, and they get into all sorts of trouble. So I'm looking forward to this. And this also goes into, it was written in 1934. So it does fit into the prompts of, so I'm going to put it to the side. My next book is Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto, and it was written in Japanese in 1988 and translated by Megan Backus in 1993. And if it wasn't for all the literary channels like Bookish and so many others, Shawn, the Book Maniac, I never would have realized about some of these books. But it says here that after Banana Mania was something in Japan, and then it came to all over the world, and it was Banana Mania seized the country. It won 2 of Japan's most prestigious literary prizes and has gone into more than 60 printings. So it's storming overseas and has landed this charming book on bookseller lists both here in the US and Europe. Discover what Publishers Weekly calls an indisputably fresh and original imagination in a work that has earned a place at the forefront of 20th century Japanese literature. So I'm just going to, it says it's like fluently readable as Ann Tyler, and I love Ann Tyler, so I'm just going to read the first little paragraph and see if this resonates with anybody here. The place I like best in the world is the kitchen, no matter where it is, no matter what kind. If it's a kitchen, if it's a place where they make food, it's fine with me. Ideally, it should be well broken in, lots of tea towels, dry and immaculate, white tile catching the light, ting, ting. That's a very snappy prose written book, so I think I'm going to enjoy this. But it's not going to be on the 1900-1950 readathon. My next book was a book by Cora Sandel. Now, she was a Norwegian writer, and the book that I was really looking for was a book that I just bought because it wasn't in the library. It was Alberta and Jacob, and it's a trilogy. And I couldn't find any of these books, and I couldn't afford to get the whole trilogy, but I did buy the book Alberta and Jacob. But this I found in my library, and it's selected short stories. And what I found very interesting about it is that it has a timeline of her work. And she was born in what they used to call Christiania, which is Oslo, Norway, But she moved to Norway. She moved to Sweden. She marries a Swedish sculptor, and she was a painter herself, or a sculptor. And then she moves, and then she separates, and she starts writing. And one of her 1931 books is called 1927, A Blue Sofa with Stories, Short Stories. And she also wrote the Alberta trilogy, which I'm going to read soon. I'm not a person who likes short stories that much, but I was very interested in one of the stories that is really, it really resonated with me, and it's called The Child Who Loved Roads. And it's said in this book that she must have loved walking. So I'm going to read just a little part of this short story. Time passed. The child ran, long braid flapping in the roads, on the roads. If she was overtaken by the grown-up, she heard, "You're too old now to be running like that. Soon you'll be wearing long skirts, remember?" A young lady walks. She holds herself nicely, thinks about how she places her feet. Then she can't run away like you do. The child ran even faster than before, to get out of earshot, out of range as much as possible. Her legs had grown long. They were of advantage when she took in her heels. The braid swung. The lengthened skirt swung. The child thought, "One day I won't turn around when they call. I won't wait for anyone. That might be sooner than they suspect. The roads lead much farther than I realized. They lead out into the world, away from all of them." That really is quite a feminist book written so early, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this story. So I'm going to put this in the books that do make the 1900, 1950. My last book is a domestic thriller. I have to say that I'm getting really tired of domestic thrillers because they all seem to be the same. But I'm still hopeful. This one is called The Downstairs Neighbor by Helen Cooper. And of course it doesn't fit the prompts. But I'll just read you. "Can you keep a secret when you live under the roof?" And my dog, my little fur baby, is trying to escape right now. So from her downstairs apartment in suburban London, Emma had often overheard the seemingly perfect family above her, Steph, Paul, and teenage daughter Freya, but has never got to know them until one day she hears something that seizes her attention. Freya has vanished and the police are questioning Steph and Paul about their life. "Do either of you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to harm or threaten you?" That does sound like a lot of different domestic thrillers that I've read. Okay, quickly now to the challenges of the 1900-1950 Readathon. Number 1 was read a book published 1900 and 1950 from the country you're from. Now, believe it or not, I had a hard time with this one, but I chose a book that I want to read or reread. I'm not sure I read it, and it's by Ernest Hemingway, and it'll be right here. It's called The Sun Also Rises, and it's a 1926 novel by American writer Ernest Hemingway, his first, that portrays American and British expatriates who travel from Paris to the festival of San Fermin in Pamplona to watch the running of the bulls and bullfights. Now, Ernest Hemingway is a pretty problematic author. He was one of these rough guys who wrote, didn't write women very well, I heard. I'm not too familiar with his writing, though. He was a big personality. Hard drinker. He was in, I think he was in the Spanish War, the Spanish Civil War. And the reason that I picked his book, not only because I like the story of people traveling and how they portray the place that they are expatriates from, you know, the ugly American kind of thing, but also because Ernest Hemingway had a very particular type of writing. He didn't waste words, and that's the way I want to write. So I want to learn from him on how he throws away words that aren't necessary, like adverbs and adjectives and so forth, because I think that's the way, that's my writing style, or at least I hope it is. Okay, so number 2 is read a book published 1900 from a different, 1950 from a different country. And that is How Green Was My Valley by Richard Llewellyn that I talked about before. Then number 3 is read a genre classic. Well, I read genre classics all the time because I love mysteries. So I already talked about P.G Wodehouse and Right Ho Jeeves and Miss Silver Comes to Stay, as well as, well, these two that were written before 1950. So the third prompt is, fourth prompt, read something published that isn't a novel, such as nonfiction, plays, poetry. Okay, so for that, I picked the Cora Sandel selected stories translated by Barbara Wilson. And I'm looking forward to reading this. I forgot another book written in another language, another time, is also The Between Sky and Sea, which I'm very excited to read. Now, I got into trouble with the fourth prompt, like I said. And the fifth prompt, excuse me, was written, a work of literature 1900 to 1950 set during or exploring World War I or World War II. Read a book from every decade, and then the bonus was read a book from every decade. This is where I got into trouble with the Readathon. I had a few books that were Holocaust memoirs, but like I said, the ones that were written very close to the time before 1950 that I had were written after or translated after. And also, I wasn't really in the mood of showing you more Holocaust literature at this time, because my mood is such is that I don't want to read something that's going to get me down, and I know that those type of books get me down. And I didn't want to go into which ones were 1900, so I'm not doing the bonus prompt. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this TBR, POP, Pile of Possibilities for May, and I hope that if you haven't already, you subscribe to my channel and push the notification bell. And believe me, when I say I have Booktube problems, they're really minor problems. I love Booktube, and I love the people that I've met here. So until we meet again, my friends, aloha.